God is not powerless over the dead. In 1 Samuel 2 verse 6, God decides who dies and who lives. He gives life and he takes it away and has oversight over everything in creation. If a medium tries to call up dead spirits, it isn't as if suddenly God loses control of what goes on in the world, spirit or not. From this reality, we can draw a few conclusions. Either the Bible's ghosts are really the dead people coming up and God is allowing it to happen, or they're not what they seem.
Doctor in a sheep!
In the example of the disciples believing Jesus to be a ghost, it was mistaken identity and human error. In the example of the transfiguration, Jesus seems to call this a vision, but even if it were the actual spirits of Elijah and Moses, God's the one doing it. And in the example of Saul visiting the medium, it seems like both things are true. God is very much in control of sending Saul a message, but it's also not a ghost or a dead spirit called up by the medium herself. When God condemns trying to communicate with spirits, he says that it's a matter of loyalty. And this is something we should pay attention to. These aren't just practices that bother him, they're practices that lead people away from God. He doesn't just say, "Don't do this because I say so." He says, "Don't do it because if you're following after evil spirits, you're not following after me." Maybe you haven't thought of it this way, but these mysterious occult practices are forms of worship, and God will not abide his people worshiping anyone but himself. These mediums and diviners are definitely interacting with something. We know they can't be interacting with the dead because God has oversight over that. So what or who are they contacting? The fact that God treats these practices as a battleground for your loyalty should make it clear. They're contacting unclean spirits who are trying to draw you away from God and his truth, and towards themselves using deception. These are God's enemies, and they should be yours too. The bottom line is, if you're faced with some sort of supernatural interaction or encounter, don't dismiss it as not real, because it very well might be. These things are nothing to mess around with. But don't entertain it as something potentially positive either. You shouldn't seek comfort in the fact that you think your dead uncle's come back from death to say goodbye to you. He hasn't. But as frightening as these spirits might be, don't let them rattle you either. God is in control of all, the living, the dead, the angelic hosts, and the unclean spirits. What he asks of you is not to follow after them, but to follow after him.